Hello learners, welcome to this session on political philosophy of Machiavelli. So in this lecture I will be discussing about the Machiavelli's political philosophy. What are the importance of Machiavelli's political philosophy in this context of political science and political philosophy, and why Machiavelli is considered as the father of modern political science or father of modern political philosophy. What are the historical context? What is his contribution to that? So these things we have to understand in this lecture. So when we think about the modern political philosophy or the modern political thought, we consider the first and pioneering person comes to our mind is that the Niccolo Machiavelli. So Machiavelli born in 1469 and he passed away in the year 1527. So this era is very, very important in the context of the transformation of this from medieval to the modern era actually. So in these circumstances we have to take into consideration under what circumstances, what are the historical circumstances influenced the Machiavelli, how he was considered to be as a fully a child of his times. Why he is considered to be fully a child of his times? For this purpose, we have to look into the environment factor of those days at that time where the Machiavelli was born and brought up, at the same time how he was lived into these times. So in these circumstances, when we look at this historical context actually, we can see that he was born in 1469 in the Florence city of present Italy. So in those days, Italy was divided into 5 major states, and each state was actually not in the harmonious relations with the other state, and there was some conflict and controversies are always there actually. So during these times, the major concern by seeing this this turbulence, at the same time the division of this Italy, so because of this actually Machiavelli was more concerned about the unification of Italy. So at one point of time he said that even he can prescribe the poison to heal the wounds of the Italy. So that is the conviction of the Machiavelli. So in such a way actually Machiavelli was born in such kind of conditions. So his major concern, major theories are completely revolving around the unification of the Italy. So in these circumstances, what was happening at the time, he has also during this time also he has seen that the replacement of Medici rule, and there was a temporary government has taken place during this time. So because of this, all this actually influenced the Machiavelli. So his major concern was to unification of the Italy and make the Italy as a very strong nation state. So because of that actually he was looking at the historical context actually. So his method was also history, but most of the times though his method was historical method, he considered historical method is the best method, but most of the times whatever the historical events and conditions he has quoted only for the sake of elucidating his argument and support of his argument. But basically his entire political philosophy, his conclusions were derived on his conception on the human nature actually. What kind of human nature is there? So based on that actually he has derived his conclusions. So when we look at the historical context, during these days actually the nation state was actually rising up actually. Previously that in the medieval era what was happening, the political power was divided and the small states and small local lords used to rule the things. But during this period, what was happening, the nation state was becoming the strong, and more institutions, the strong states and strong monarchies were coming up in those days. At the same time, when we look at this other implications of historical conditions at that time, there was so much of scientific advancement. At the same time, the Renaissance was going on. And the scientific advancements, when we look at the major scientific advancements at that time, which was influenced the Machiavelli during his time, which was influenced the Machiavelli's political thought in this time, is that the Copernicus discoveries. The Copernicus discoveries is before that actually what was happening, the people used to believe that the earth is the center for entire the universe and all the planets are revolving around the earth. So the Copernicus discovery is that actually transformed from the geocentric to heliocentric model actually. So he started saying that Earth is not the center and the sun is the center for this universe, and Earth is revolving around the universe. This kind of inventions are coming up. People started thinking about the other things and the universe and other life and better life. Is there any life outside the this Earth after this? Is there any life after the death? All these kind of questions were coming up. There was a lot of intellectual stimulus was going on in those days. So apart from that, the invention of mariner's compass, quadrant and chronometer is another important event which we have to remember here. So this invention of mariner's compass actually made a navigation revolution. This navigation revolution actually tremendously impacted the human life, at the same time human thought, and it also have given the stimulus to the trade and commerce among the different parts of the world. So previously people think that the world is very limited, but they started discovering the different parts of the world, different parts of the globe they have invented, going with this help of this mariner's compass and the quadrant, so that they can easily navigate. So that is one of the important thing. So this helped the trade and commerce, and this was also influencing the political. There was a lot of political impact on this. Actually, the states are becoming the more centralized, at the same time more centralized and monarchies are coming up during this time. And one more important scientific advancement here we have to understand is that Gutenberg's the printing press. When the Gutenberg came out with the printing mechanism, so this printing mechanism actually transformed the entire life of the human beings at that time, because the lot of books, lot of knowledge has been actually because of this movable books. Previously the books were not that, they used it to write in a different formats. When the printing machine as mechanism has been established, because of this printing mechanism actually the knowledge explosion, at the same time knowledge revolution has taken place during this period. At the same time, this helped actually the cultural and intellectual stimulus in those days, and it has become a very a wonderful the intellectual heritage was started in those days. So because of this, actually what was happening at that time is that humanism, the concept of humanism, making the human beings as a center for each and everything. So human beings are the center, and everything has to be measured based on the human life, human existence, with the help of the human experience. That was the things. So it is not the heavenly life, heavenly adobe. It is the human being is the center for the things. So because of this scientific outlook was coming out up, at the same time there was a lot of decline of this eternal world, decline towards the interest of the eternal world. So nobody knows that at that time. The thinking was that nobody knows whether there is a life out after the death or not. Nobody knows, but it is better to be live in a better manner, better to be achieved in a better potential in this life itself. That kind of outlook was coming up in the human beings. At the same time, there was a decline for the interest in the next world. So because of all these things, what was happening, it is considered that there is a lot of transformation from the medieval to the modern era. So during this time, actually Machiavelli come up with his political ideas, and influence of this all these events, historical circumstances. His political ideas are very, very pragmatic, very, very realistic. Because of this, actually he is considered to be father of modern political philosophy or the modern political science, and he is also considered to be the one of the pragmatic and realist political thinker in our context. So why he is realistic political thinker? What is his unique things? So when we look at his political philosophy, we have to understand the human nature, the description of human nature by Machiavelli. So the Machiavelli human nature is completely, because based on his description, based on his conviction on human nature only, he has derived entire his political convictions also. So as for the Machiavelli's description of the human nature, the human beings are very much very selfish in nature. They are very coward in nature, completely self-centric and full of egoistic. At the same time, he uses a very strong words and very, very pessimistic, at the same time very dark and gloomy picture about these human beings. And he says that they are very, very aggressive, stupid and irrational. Always they are jealous about other human beings, and they are too much ambitious also. At the same time, they have a lot of greed for the wealth, love for the wealth, and they always wanted to acquire more and more wealth. How much you acquire, how much the human beings are acquiring the wealth, they don't even consider that is enough, and they have a lot of wealth acquired for acquiring the wealth. At the same time, they want an extreme freedom. They don't want any kind of restrictions. They don't want any kind of curtailment of their freedom. They wanted to be as free as they wanted. So because of this, actually, Machiavelli says at one place, men are ungrateful, fickle-minded, deceitful, cowardly, and audacious. So these are the basic descriptions given by the human about the human nature by this Machiavelli. So if you look at the human nature, actually, many political philosophers approach this human nature into different ways. Basically, we can see that some of the thinkers believe that the human beings are very social in nature, very harmonious. They will be good human beings. They are good. So, but at the same time, there are other set of political thinkers like Machiavelli and Thomas Hobbes. They don't believe in human nature. They are very, very pessimistic about the human nature. So these human beings are very, very selfish in nature, very, very egoistic in nature, very stupid, very irrational. They will be judging the things altogether appearance. So because of this, actually, what Machiavelli says that these human beings should be completely controlled by the state. Completely, the state has to control. State has to be more strong to curb things. At the same time, to make the interest of the state, the strongness of the state, a strong state, and the stability of the state is very, very important. For that purpose, the Machiavelli argues for the separation of any religion from the politics, at the same time separation of ethics from the politics. This is the unique contribution of the Machiavelli. So this is very, very pragmatic. Based on this human nature, actually, Machiavelli gives some certain suggestions to this monarch or the prince at that time. So in his one of the major work, the Prince, actually gives lot of practical suggestions, very pragmatic suggestions to the to the prince or the ruler. So he says that based on this human nature, monarch should aim rather to be feared than to be loved. So because of what is happening, the love is a bond, actually, the bond and obligation. So this bond and obligation, when their selfish interest has been actually affecting, when their selfish things are affecting, at the same time, when there is no fear from the ruler, then at any point of time, their obedience may break. So because of that, actually, monarch always aims to be feared than the loved. So because of this, actually, the fear is always constant. At the same time, when the life is fear can bind all these human beings in a proper manner. That is what the things. So these human beings will be judging the things altogether as appearance, how appeared things. So because of that, he suggests that you try to look the things. You try to appear that you are a very good, very religious, very moral. But you need not to be a very religious, very moral, or very a kind of a integrity, having the person with integrity. You can, but for the appearance, for the conviction of the people, for the people's conception, actually, you should be a very, very moral person, a kind of a religious person. But you need not to be following in a natural way. At the same time, they are very, very vicious in nature. They are made good only by necessity. The people, if somebody is behaving with you in a proper manner, somebody is behaving with you in a good manner, there may be some necessity. Otherwise, they won't behave in a proper manner. So when some human being or human is behaving with another human being with good terms or courteous manner, there may be some kind of need or some kind of necessity. So when that need or necessity is not there, they will be behaving in a different manner. So accordingly, the ruler has to always need to judge his own judgment, need to depend upon his own judgment, need not to be depend upon the counselors. So that is one of the important suggestion Machiavelli gives. At the same time, men readily can forget the death of his father. He says that men can easily forget the death of his father, but they cannot forget the loss of the patrimony. So, any time if the ruler is touching the property of the subjects, then any time they may rebel against the ruler, rebel against the government. So, never ever touch. At the same time, not only the property, never ever touch the women also, because it is very, very sentimental for these human beings. So, he says that you never touch the property. At the same time, women, these are very, very sentimental. They are very greedy about the property and the wealth. So, accordingly you act. That is what one of the important suggestion given by the Machiavelli to the prince. So, based on this human nature, based on these conditions, how the human beings are behave in a system, in a society, so he comes out with a kind of a very, very pragmatic thinking, very pragmatic suggestions. He says that this religion and ethics has no role in politics. The religion and ethics has no role in politics. So, these are completely need to be subjugated and subordinated to the politics. So, religion is completely a different thing and politics is completely a different thing. Ultimately, the state which will be controlling all the spheres of human life is very, very essential and very, very important. So, the stability of the political system is very, very important. For the stability of the political system, for establishing the stability of the political system, the ruler anytime can kept aside this religion and this ethics. There is no ethics when the state is in harm, when the state is in danger, when somebody is attacking your territory, then there is nothing called ethics, there is nothing called just, unjust, or anything called morality. So, never ever look into all these things. The first and foremost thing for the prince or the monarch or the ruler is that the stability of the country, at the same time giving a strong governance and ruling the people in a better manner. That is the important thing. For that purpose, there is nothing called ethics. At the same time, he also completely disassociate the politics with the religion. So, religion doesn't have any kind of role in the politics. So, this morality, religion always has to be subordinated to the state and the stability of the state and betterment of the state. So, here only believes actually we all know that the theory of lions and foxes. So, this theory of lions and foxes is nothing but the ruler must be as strong as lion. He should be as strong like a lion, at the same time cunning like a fox. So, in these circumstances, what is the things? He says that ends justify the means. In contrast to the Mahatma Gandhi, actually, Gandhi talks about means justify the ends. It means that suppose if you want to achieve some target, even to reach that target is also the means. The way also should be good. Way also should be very moral, very just and good things you have to follow to reach some certain destination and the certain end. But Machiavelli says that the protection of the state, at the same time stability of the state and giving the good governance is the means for the state. For that end, actually, what are the means and methods if you follow, that is nothing but it is okay. So, because of this actually he concludes that his conviction is that ends justifies the means. So, if your end, if your target, if your goal is good, then to achieve that you can follow any kind of methods. So, ultimately you are going to achieve these things. So, that's what for that purpose he says that the ruler should be acting like a fox, like a cunning, at the same time a strong and a very, very fearful like a lion. So, that way he says that is a thing. So, when we look at this his political ideas, we can come across this similar political ideas of Kautilya also. That's what the Kautilya is considered as the Indian Machiavelli. Why? Because the same pragmatic, same realistic political ideas also reflects in the Kautilya's ideas. Because of that, actually, what is happening, and he was named as a Indian Machiavelli. So Kautilya also says that there is nothing, that only the ruler has to do the things. Rulers should be a very strong. He should not have giving that things and dominance of the state. At the same time, preservance of the state is one of the important criteria for Kautilya's political philosophy also. So because of that, the Kautilya is also considered as the Indian Machiavelli. But there are certain objections for that. Some people are arguing that Kautilya's Arthashastra is written much before the Machiavelli's prince. So these are, but at the same time, when we look at the Kautilya's Arthashastra has actually came to the light of very long time after the Machiavelli's Prince was published, and it is already, it was into the so much into the public life and all these things. So despite of that, their ideas are very there is a lot of contrast and a very little contradiction between their ideas. So because of that, these things are coming. So when we look at this Machiavelli's place in the political philosophy, his political philosophy, his place is very unique. The first person in the political history, political philosophy, who has actually kept aside this religion and politics and morality, at the same time subordinated this to the state. State is the supreme. At the same time, human beings are the supreme, and everything will be merged and measured based on the human beings' experiences. So state is the one of the first and foremost institution when we look at the things. So because of that, state is the first and foremost institution. At the same time, it has the many roles, and it has to control the human beings because of this human nature. And for that purpose, and by seeing that Italy dividing into so many states and there are so much of turbulence and conflict in those days, he wanted to establish the strong Italy. For that purpose, he was coming out with a very practical suggestions, at the same time very pragmatic suggestions. So by saying that, by subordinating in those days in the medieval things, when the Renaissance was going on, at that time, taking into the conditions and everything into taking into consideration, he has come out with the unique things. So a ruler must be very strong. He should not be obeying the religion or the politics and this morality and all these things. So first and foremost things are the state. So by stating that, he became the very strong person who has advocated first time in the history of political theory that the very pragmatic principles, at the same time very realistic principles. And even nowadays also he was very much misunderstood. And when it will be considered, even when this present politics, when the people are doing, when these present politicians are doing some kind of unwanted things or negative things, then people will be saying that these are Machiavellian politics. But Machiavelli never suggests any kind of immorality to the people and the subjects. Machiavelli suggested only this keeping aside this ethics and morality, keeping aside when only to the ruler when there is a threat to the state, when there is a threat to the state or the monarchy. So based on that, actually he is not immoral political philosopher in the sense that we can say that he is unmoral when it comes to the stability and protection of the state and governance of the state and giving the best governance to the state. So that way he is very unique in nature. Because of this, actually he became the first person in the political philosophy and political history, and giving the very pragmatic and very realistic political ideas. So that way he has transformed the political philosophy, which was always into the thinking about the more and more very unrealistic utopian things. From the utopian things to he has made that political philosophy into a very pragmatic philosophy. Because of that, he is considered as a modern political father of modern political science or modern political philosophy. So that way his place in the history of the political thought is very unique. I hope you will be able to understand the context of the Machiavellian political philosophy. So with this, I take leave. Thank you.